The night sky above Earth was calm, filled with countless stars that had shone the same way for thousands of years. But deep beyond those stars, something had changed. A signal, sharp and cold, was racing through the void of space toward Earth. It was not a natural sound. It was a voice heavy with power and authority. At a remote listening post in the mountains of Chile, a group of scientists were the first to hear it. Dr. Elena Vargas leaned over the console, her eyes wide as strange tones and rhythms filled the speakers. The signal was strong, far too strong to be a mistake. She turned to her team, her voice trembling. "This is no ordinary transmission. This is a message." They worked quickly to decode it, running the strange patterns through translation programs. Within hours, the words became clear. The alien voice declared, "We are the Zorath Dominion. We claim the stars. Earth, you are discovered. You will surrender your world, your resources, and your loyalty. Refuse, and you will face destruction. You have one rotation of your sun to answer." The room fell silent. None of them spoke. It felt impossible, like a dream, but the message was real. Humanity had waited for centuries to learn if they were alone in the universe. Now the answer had come not as a greeting, but as a threat. The news traveled fast. By the next morning, leaders across the globe had heard. The United Nations called an emergency session, and for the first time every seat was filled. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists gathered in New York, their faces grim. The Secretary General, an elderly man with silver hair, stood before them. His voice was steady, but his eyes revealed the weight of the moment. Humanity has dreamed of meeting others among the stars. But today we learn that not all civilizations come in peace. The Zorath Dominion demands our surrender. We must decide, do we kneel or do we stand? The room erupted with voices. Some argued that Earth had no chance. The alien fleet was surely far more advanced. Resistance would mean extinction. Others slammed their fist on the table, shouting that humanity must never bow to tyrants, no matter the odds. In the middle of the debate, a new alert came in. Astronomers had detected strange objects near the edge of the solar system. Dozens of them moving fast. They were not asteroids. They were ships. Panic spread across the world. News channels broadcast images of the incoming fleet. Citizens filled the streets demanding answers. Some prayed. Some prepared to flee cities. But amid the fear, a strange unity began to grow. People who once argued about borders, politics, and beliefs now faced the same truth. Earth itself was in danger. Meanwhile, in a darkened room of the Pentagon, General Marcus Hale studied the alien message again and again. He was a man who had spent his life defending Earth from human threats, but this was different. He turned to his officers. "They think we'll surrender. They think we're weak, but they don't know humanity. We've survived everything this world has thrown at us, wars, disasters, plagues. We don't give up. If they want to fight, they'll see what it means to challenge Earth." In the laboratories of Geneva, scientists gathered around quantum computers, trying to analyze alien technology hidden in the signal. Every clue mattered. Engineers discussed how to strengthen Earth's defenses. Could satellites be repurposed into weapons? Could ships in orbit be upgraded for combat? Every hour counted. On the streets of cities around the globe, people spoke with a new tone. Yes, they were afraid, but fear turned into determination. Families hung flags from their windows declaring their loyalty to Earth. Soldiers lined up to volunteer. Even those who had never believed in war whispered the same words, "We will not kneel." Back in New York, the United Nations session stretched through the night. Finally, after endless debate, the Secretary General rose again. His voice echoed in the Great Hall. "We have heard the demand. We have seen the ships. And we have felt the fear. But humanity has never chosen chains over freedom. The Zorath Dominion believes we are weak. Let us prove them wrong. Let us show them Earth will never surrender." The chamber erupted in thunderous applause. For the first time, the nations of Earth agreed on one decision. They would answer the threat not with silence, not with fear, but with unity. Across the world, the declaration spread. Screens lit up with the official message, "Earth will not surrender. If war comes, we will fight." The next morning, in a hidden base beneath the deserts of Nevada, technicians activated the first stage of the Unified Defense Program. Old rivalries between countries were set aside. Scientists from America, Russia, China, India, and Europe sat side by side, drafting plans to build new weapons, new shields, new ships, Humanity's brightest minds were working together as one. But time was short. The alien fleet continued its approach, growing closer each day. Earth had only weeks, perhaps less, before the first clash. At night, ordinary people looked up at the stars differently. They no longer saw only beauty. They saw danger approaching. Children asked their parents if aliens would destroy them. Parents answered with gentle lies, hiding their own fear. Yet under that fear, something stronger burned. Determination. Humanity had always been underestimated, even by itself. But when threatened, when cornered, when pushed to the edge, humans had a history of fighting back with everything they had. The Zorath Dominion had made a mistake. They had threatened not just one nation, but the whole species, and Earth was preparing to answer. As the days passed, the alien ships crossed the orbit of Neptune. Telescopes captured blurry images of their size, colossal vessels, each one larger than the biggest human cities. The sight filled the world with dread. But in the command center of the Unified Defense Program, General Hale stood before a map of the solar system. Around him were scientists, commanders, and leaders from every continent. He looked at them all, his voice firm. They are stronger than us. They are faster than us. But we have one thing they don't. We are human. We adapt, we create, and we fight together. If they want Earth, they'll have to take it. And I promise you it won't be easy. The room fell silent, then one by one, heads nodded. It was not just a promise. It was a vow. In the silence of space, the alien fleet drew closer. On Earth, for the first time in history, humanity was united. Fear still lingered, but now it stood beside courage. The world had made its choice, and the choice was clear. Humanity would not surrender. Humanity would fight. The day after the United Earth Council made its decision, the world felt different. People woke up knowing they were no longer only citizens of their own nations. They were now citizens of Earth. A threat had come from the stars, and the answer was given: Earth would not surrender. In New York, the Great Hall of the United Nations had been transformed into the new command chamber of the Unified Defense Program. Flags of every country lined the walls, but at the center stood one larger flag, white and blue, marked with a symbol of Earth itself. For the first time in history, the entire planet had a single banner to rally under. General Marcus Hale, standing tall in his uniform, addressed the gathered leaders and scientists. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of responsibility. The Zorath believe we are weak. They see a divided world, always arguing and fighting among ourselves. But now we are one. From this day forward, we fight not as nations, but as humanity, and we will show them what that means. Around the room, heads nodded in agreement. Even leaders who had once been enemies sat side by side. They had no choice now. Earth would live or die together. Building the defense factories across the world shifted overnight. Automobile plants began producing armored drones. Airplane factories worked day and night to assemble new spacecraft. Some built from scratch, others refitted from existing designs. Shipyards along the coasts of Asia and Europe built massive carriers not for seas, but for the skies above Earth. In Geneva, scientists unlocked pieces of alien data hidden inside the original Zorath transmission. The enemy had not realized that humans were clever enough to reverse engineer signals. From that single broadcast, humanity learned fragments of their energy systems, their propulsion methods, even hints about their weapons. Dr. Elena Vargas, the scientist who had first decoded the alien message, now stood at the center of these breakthroughs. With tired eyes but determined hands, she worked day and night, her team discovering ways to mimic alien shielding technology on a smaller scale. If we cannot match their strength, she told her colleagues, then we must outthink them. Human creativity is our greatest weapon. The spirit of unity, the world outside the laboratories also changed. In the streets of London, people painted murals of Earth surrounded by stars with the words, "We stand together." In Tokyo, children tied blue ribbons around trees as a symbol of unity. In Nairobi, musicians played songs of courage that spread across the internet, giving people hope. Even in remote villages, people felt the weight of the coming storm. Farmers donated food to feed soldiers. Mechanics offered their skills to repair vehicles for defense. Students studied engineering and science with new determination, believing their minds might help protect the world. Fear was still there, yes, but it was no longer the kind of fear that broke people. It was the kind that gave them strength to rise higher than they ever thought possible. The first response. While humanity built its defenses, the Zorath fleet continued its silent march through the solar system. They crossed Saturn's orbit, their enormous ships blotting out stars when viewed through telescopes. Every day they drew closer. At last, Earth sent its first response. The United Earth Council prepared a message, broadcast on every frequency the aliens could hear. The Secretary General, standing before the camera with the flag of Earth behind him, spoke with calm authority. To the Zorath Dominion, you demanded our surrender. You offered us chains or death. We choose neither. We are the people of Earth. We are many nations, but one species. We do not bow. We do not yield. If you seek war, then war is what you shall have. Know this, Earth stands together. The message was sent across the void, carried on waves of light and sound. It would take hours to reach the alien fleet, but when it did, the Zorath would hear Earth's defiance loud and clear. The training of heroes in military bases across continents, soldiers trained harder than ever before. But it was not only soldiers. Engineers, pilots, doctors, and even civilians prepared themselves for roles in defense. On an airfield in Texas, young pilots practiced flying experimental spacecraft, built to carry railguns and missiles into orbit. One of them, Lieutenant Sarah Grant, wiped sweat from her forehead after a grueling session. She looked at her instructor and said with quiet determination, "If they come for Earth, they'll have to get through us first." In Russia, engineers tested massive electromagnetic cannons capable of firing projectiles at incredible speed. The tests shook the frozen ground, but the scientists cheered. Finally, they had a weapon that might pierce alien armor. In Africa, teams of programmers worked on advanced drones that could swarm in space battles, designed to confuse the enemy with unpredictable movements. Humanity did not have centuries to prepare as the Zorath had. But humanity had something else, urgency. Every person knew that time was short and every effort mattered. Voices of doubt, of course, not everyone believed victory was possible. In secret meetings, some leaders whispered that resistance would only bring destruction. Others feared humanity's technology was still too primitive. But those voices were drowned out by the rising spirit of defiance. The sight of Earth's flag flying above city halls, schools, and homes reminded people that giving up was no longer an option. One evening, Dr. Elena Vargas stood on a balcony overlooking the streets of Geneva. Below her, a crowd of citizens marched with candles in their hands, chanting the same words again and again. "We are Earth, we will not kneel." She whispered to herself, "Perhaps that is our true weapon, not machines or guns, but this unbreakable will." The enemy reacts far beyond Earth. Aboard the flagship of the Zorath fleet, the alien commander received the human transmission. The chamber was silent as the words of defiance echoed in their strange language. The commander's eyes narrowed. No world had ever dared reject the Dominion. Species after species had bowed in fear, surrendering without a fight. But these humans were different. The commander turned to his advisors. "They do not understand. They believe unity will save them. Instead, it will bring their doom. Prepare the fleets. When we reach their world, we will show them the price of defiance." A world united back on Earth, the days passed quickly. Factories roared, laboratories buzzed, and training grounds shook with the sound of determination. Every person knew the storm was coming, and every person did their part to prepare for it. In schools, children wrote letters to soldiers. In homes, families spoke of bravery and hope. In cities, volunteers stood ready to rebuild if destruction came. Humanity had never felt so fragile, and yet never so strong. The stars above no longer looked distant and cold. They looked alive, filled with danger but also filled with possibility. For the first time, humanity was not just looking at the stars. Humanity was preparing to fight among them. The countdown. When the Zorath fleet reached the orbit of Jupiter, alarms rang across Earth. The time for talk was over. The time for battle was near. In the command chamber of the Unified Defense Program, General Hale watched the alien fleet's movement on the large holographic display. His voice carried across the room. "They are close now. Soon their guns will point at us. But remember this. They have numbers, they have power, but we have something stronger. We have the will to fight. And as long as we stand together, Earth will not fall." The leaders, the scientists, the soldiers all stood in silence for a moment. Then one by one they nodded. Humanity was ready. The Zorath had sent their threat. Earth had answered with a declaration of war. And soon, The stars themselves would burn with the fire of the first great clash between humanity and the empire of the Zorath Dominion. The silence of space had always been peaceful, but now it carried the shadow of war. The Zorath Dominion's fleet moved like a storm across the solar system, their enormous ships gliding with perfect formation. Each vessel was a floating city, bristling with weapons that shone like cold stars. Humanity watched every step of their advance. Telescopes tracked their movements. Satellites captured their shadows as they passed Jupiter. The countdown had begun. The aliens were coming closer with each day, and Earth had no choice but to meet them. The Defense Line General Marcus Hale stood in the Unified Defense Command, his eyes locked on the holographic display of the solar system. Small glowing dots represented the human fleet, spread across the orbits of Mars, the Moon, and Earth itself. Compared to the alien fleet, they looked like tiny sparks against a roaring fire. Still, they were ready. Railgun stations had been built on the Moon, capable of firing metal slugs at incredible speeds. Drones were hidden inside asteroid belts waiting to ambush. Around Mars, a cluster of human warships formed the first defense line. "These are brave men and women," Hale said softly, almost to himself. Outnumbered, outgunned, but not out of spirit. Dr. Elena Vargas, standing beside him, added with quiet determination, "And spirit may be what the Zorath never understood." The invasion begins. It started at the colonies on Mars. The Red Planet had long been home to scientists, miners and pioneers who dreamed of building a second home for humanity. Now it became the first battlefield. The Zorath fleet sent a vanguard of sleek silver ships, each one the size of a skyscraper. They descended into Mars orbit, weapons glowing. The colonists sent a desperate call for help. The human fleet near Mars responded at once. Admiral Akira Tanaka, commander of the Mars Defense Force, ordered his ships forward. Her fleet was small, only 12 warships and a swarm of drones, but her voice was calm as she spoke to her crew. "Remember why we fight? This is our home. This is our Earth. Hold the line." The battle began. The first shots. The void lit up as human warships opened fire. Railguns thundered silently in the emptiness of space, launching projectiles that streaked like falling stars. Missiles flared from hidden launchers, streaking toward the alien ships. The Zorath answered with beams of pure energy, slicing through the darkness like knives of light. Human ships twisted and rolled, their pilots using every trick they knew. Unlike the aliens, who fought with strict formation, humans fought with chaos. They attacked from odd angles, darted between asteroids, and used drones as decoys. One human cruiser, the Dauntless, charged straight at a Zorath ship. Its railguns fired again and again, hammering at the alien shield until sparks erupted. The crew cheered as the shield flickered. But then, with a blinding flash, the alien weapon fired, and the Dauntless was gone in a burst of light. Admiral Tanaka gritted her teeth. "We knew this would cost us. Hold steady. Keep firing!" A desperate fight, the battle raged for hours. Human ships darted and weaved, firing missiles, railguns, and even experimental plasma weapons. Drones swarmed in great clouds, distracting the enemy and forcing them to spread their fire. To the Zorath, the humans seemed reckless, almost wild. Their commanders were unused to such unpredictable tactics. On their bridge, alien officers clicked their tongues in confusion as human ships fought in ways no algorithm could predict. One by one, human ships fell, but not without taking pieces of the enemy with them. A destroyer rammed into a Zorath vessel, detonating its reactor in a fiery explosion that tore both ships apart. Another human squadron lured an alien cruiser into the asteroid belt, where hidden railguns shredded it to pieces. For every human loss, there was at least some victory. And slowly, incredibly, the Zorath began to realize these primitives were not as weak as they believed. The victory at Jupiter back on Earth, every battle report was followed with fear and hope. Cities stopped to watch the news. Families gathered around screens. When a human ship was lost, silence fell. When an alien ship was destroyed, cheers echoed across the globe. The turning point came near Jupiter. A massive Zorath dreadnought entered orbit, preparing to strike at human outposts. Waiting for it was a small squadron under Captain Daniel Reyes. He commanded only 4 ships, but his mind was sharp, and he had studied the enemy carefully. Instead of meeting the dreadnought head-on, Reyes led his fleet into Jupiter's swirling storms. The great planet's gravity and magnetic field created chaos for sensors. The alien dreadnought followed, confident it could crush them. But inside the storm, the humans disappeared. Then from the clouds, their ships struck like lightning. Railguns fired point blank. Missiles slammed into the dreadnought's engines. At the same time, hidden satellites activated, firing concentrated blasts of energy. The dreadnought's shield held for minutes, but only minutes. With a final strike, it collapsed in flames, breaking apart and sinking into Jupiter's endless clouds. When the news reached Earth, the world erupted in joy. Humanity had destroyed its first major alien warship. It was proof the Zorath could be beaten. Hope rises, the victory at Jupiter spread like fire across Earth. Songs were written about it, murals painted, and families celebrated. For the first time since the alien message, hope filled human hearts. In New York, the Secretary General addressed the world. They thought we would fall quickly. They thought we would surrender without a fight. But today our fleets have shown the truth. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity stands. Cheers erupted across every continent. People in the streets waved the flag of Earth. Soldiers trained harder, their spirits lifted. Even scientists worked with renewed energy, knowing their inventions could make the difference. The enemy's shock far away. Aboard the Zorath flagship, the alien commander studied the reports. His officers spoke nervously, their voices filled with disbelief. "These humans are different," one hissed. "They fight with no fear. They fight with chaos. They are dangerous," the commander's expression hardened. "Dangerous, yes, but not invincible. Prepare the full fleet. They want war, then war they shall have." The cost of defiance back on Mars, the battle had ended. Human fleets had fought bravely, but the colonies were scarred. Buildings lay in ruins. Fires burned under the thin atmosphere. Families mourned their dead. Yet even there, the spirit of resistance lived on. Survivors raised the flag of Earth above the rubble, refusing to bow. Admiral Tanaka, her ship damaged but still flying, sent a final message to Earth. "We have taken losses, but we are still here. Mars still stands, and we will fight again." Her words became another spark of courage carried across the planet. Toward the final battle, in the Unified Defense Command, General Hale listened to the reports. Humanity had suffered, yes. Many ships were lost. Lives had been sacrificed. But the impossible had happened. Earth had survived its first encounters with the Zorath. He looked at the holographic display of the solar system. The alien fleet was still vast, still powerful. The true invasion was yet to come. But now, humanity had something it did not have before, proof that victory was possible. Turning to Dr. Elena Vargas, Hale said firmly, "They thought we would be broken by fear. Instead, we are stronger. The war has just begun." Elena nodded, her eyes filled with quiet fire, "and we are ready to meet it." The first clash in the void was over. Humanity was bloodied but unbowed. The Zorath had learned a lesson they would never forget. Earth would not fall easily. The war was far from finished. The darkest days still lay ahead. But now humanity stood taller, their spirit unbroken, their courage rising like a flame against the endless night of space. The battle near Jupiter had ended, leaving trails of fire and wreckage drifting among the clouds of the gas giant. Humanity had won a small but significant victory, and the world celebrated. Yet in the hearts of leaders and soldiers alike, there was no time to rest. The Zorath fleet was still vast, still powerful, and now they were more determined than ever. On Earth, the cities were alive with renewed energy. Factories ran day and night. Scientists and engineers worked in harmony, combining human innovation with lessons learned from alien technology. In orbit, shipyards constructed new warships faster than ever, incorporating human ingenuity into their design. These ships were not as massive as the Zorath vessels, but they were clever, faster, more adaptable, and designed to use the unpredictability of humans to their advantage. The power of human ingenuity, Dr. Elena Vargas stood in the heart of a laboratory in Geneva, staring at a complex holographic display. It showed a new type of energy shield her team had developed, inspired by Zorath technology but built for humans. "This could protect our ships from direct energy fire," she said, pointing at the glowing barriers in the simulation. "It won't make them invincible, but it will give our fleets the edge we need in battle." Beside her, Lieutenant Sarah Grant examined a new squadron of drones. "They can move in swarms," she said, avoiding Zorath sensors and striking where they least expect. Humans think in ways the Zorath cannot predict. The small victories in research and design added up. Railguns grew faster and more accurate. AI-guided interceptors learned from previous engagements. Even modest energy shields allowed human pilots to survive attacks that would have destroyed them before. Each step built confidence. Each success proved humanity could adapt, even against an enemy far stronger in raw power. Training for the next clash. While scientists worked on technology, soldiers trained harder than ever. The United Earth Council had organized the Great Simulation Program, a virtual battlefield where human pilots, crews, and commanders practiced countless strategies against simulated Zorath forces. Captain Daniel Reyes led a team of young pilots in one of the simulations. "Remember," he said, "the Zorath rely on patterns. They expect precision, order, and obedience. We are not precise. We are unpredictable. That is our strength." The simulations were grueling. Ships were destroyed, crews made mistakes, and commanders faced impossible choices. But every loss became a lesson. Every mistake taught humans how to survive the next encounter. By the end of each day, pilots emerged stronger, smarter, and more confident. On Mars, survivors of the first battle continued to train the new recruits. Admiral Akira Tanaka personally oversaw the preparation of younger crews. She emphasized one thing above all: courage. "Fear is natural," she told them, "but courage is choosing to act despite fear. That is what will make us victorious." Earth's unity shines. The world itself seemed to rise in support of the effort. Citizens volunteered in unprecedented numbers. Engineers offered expertise. Farmers donated resources. Students sent messages of encouragement to the fleets. Humanity had discovered a new strength: unity. In Tokyo, the streets were filled with people waving flags of Earth, not their nations. In London, schools held ceremonies for children to understand their role in this global struggle. And in every corner of the world, the phrase "Earth stands together" became a rallying cry. Even ordinary people, once powerless in the face of war, began to understand their importance. Every contribution mattered. Every effort strengthened the planet's defenses. Humanity's courage was no longer only on the battlefield, it was everywhere. Intelligence from captured aliens. Amid the preparations, human scouts captured a small Zorath vessel near the asteroid belt. The aliens aboard were stunned at humanity's unexpected resistance. Using careful negotiations and universal translation devices, humans learned valuable information about the Zorath's hierarchy, technology, and strategy. Dr. Elena Vargas studied the data with awe. "They've never faced anyone who refused to surrender," she said. "They underestimate adaptability, imagination, and spirit. That is why they are vulnerable." The intelligence gave humans a psychological advantage. They now understood the enemy's weaknesses: rigid tactics, slow decision-making for their massive fleet, and a tendency to underestimate creativity. Armed with this knowledge, human commanders developed daring plans to use deception, speed, and surprise to their advantage. The approach of the main fleet. Despite victories and preparation, the Zorath's main fleet was still moving steadily toward Earth. Their ships now occupied the orbits of Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, forming an enormous formation that blocked out the stars when viewed through telescopes. The leaders of Earth studied the fleet carefully. They were outnumbered. Their ships were smaller, fewer in number, and less heavily armed. But numbers alone did not determine victory. Humans had proven that courage, adaptability, and ingenuity could turn the tide. General Marcus Hale stood in the Unified Defense Command, surrounded by the leaders of every nation. His voice was firm, carrying through the tense room. "They believe we are weak. They believe we will break. But we have survived their first strike. We have learned, adapted, and strengthened. Soon they will realize they are facing something different, a species that refuses to fall." The leaders nodded. Even in the face of impossible odds, hope burned brightly. A bold decision, the Council faced a critical choice. Humanity could wait for the Zorath to strike first, risking devastation, or they could take the fight to the enemy, striking early and using their knowledge of the fleet to disrupt their formations. After hours of debate, the decision was unanimous. Humanity would take the initiative. "We cannot wait," General Hale declared. "We have the chance to show them that Earth is not a world to conquer. We strike first and we strike smart. Our victory begins with courage and strategy, not fear." Preparations began immediately. Fleets were positioned near the outer planets. Supply lines were strengthened. Pilots and crews practiced their maneuvers for the coming engagement. Every person involved understood the risk but also the importance of hope. The human spirit among ordinary citizens, the story of humanity's resilience spread like wildfire. Songs, paintings, and messages appeared everywhere. In Cairo, children built small models of spacecraft and held mock battles. In Rio de Janeiro, artists painted murals depicting humans fighting shoulder to shoulder, their eyes filled with determination. Even families separated by distance felt connected. Messages of encouragement were sent to pilots, soldiers, and scientists. The people of Earth realized that they were part of something bigger than themselves, a united species standing against an empire. The Zorath. Take notice. The Zorath commander, aboard his flagship, now understood that these humans were unlike any race he had conquered. Reports of the Jupiter battle, small victories on Mars, and defiance across Earth had reached him. They are not like the others, he told his advisors. They are unpredictable, reckless, and unyielding. Yet they are dangerous. He ordered his fleet to advance more cautiously, adjusting formations and deploying scouts, but caution would not guarantee victory. The humans had learned too much, adapted too quickly, and their courage burned brighter than ever. The calm before the storm on Earth. Nights were filled with tension. Families watched the stars, wondering when the next attack would come. Soldiers slept little, preparing for the battle that could determine the future of the planet. Scientists monitored alien signals ready to counter the next strike. And yet hope persisted. Humanity had survived the first battles. Humanity had adapted and grown stronger. Humanity had proven it could fight, and even win. Dr. Vargas stood on the balcony of the Geneva laboratory, watching the night sky. She whispered to herself, "They think the war is theirs to win, but they have never faced a species that fights with heart, mind, and courage together. That is our true strength." General Hale in the Unified Defense Command echoed the thought. "We have learned. We have grown, and when the battle comes, the Zorath will see what it means to challenge Earth." The turning point, the small victories, the innovations, the unity of Earth. Everything had brought humanity to this moment. The Zorath would soon reach the inner solar system. The final conflict was approaching, but this time humanity was not merely defending. They had learned, adapted, and prepared. They were ready to strike strategically, to take the fight to the enemy, and to prove that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the mightiest fleet. The turning point was clear. Earth would no longer react to the Zorath. Earth would lead the battle, and when humanity struck, it would strike with the full force of a united world, ready to defend its home and declare to the stars, "We are Earth. We will not kneel. We will fight and we will win." The vast darkness of space stretched endlessly before humanity's fleets. The Zorath Armada had moved into the inner solar system, their colossal ships blotting out the stars. Every human ship, from the smallest drone to the largest carrier, was prepared for the ultimate confrontation. The time for waiting was over. The time for action had arrived. On the bridge of the flagship Aurora, General Marcus Hale stood at the forefront, his eyes fixed on the display of approaching enemy ships. The view showed hundreds of Zorath vessels, each one larger than any human warship, yet he did not falter. Behind him, crews moved with disciplined precision, checking systems, reloading weapons, and preparing for the fight of their lives. "This is it," Hale said quietly to Dr. Elena Vargas standing beside him. "This is what we've been preparing for. Everything, the sacrifices, the late nights, the inventions, leads to this moment." Elena nodded, her eyes scanning the tactical map. "They expect fear. They expect hesitation. They will get neither." The declaration before the fleets engaged, humanity made a final statement to the stars. From every major broadcast channel on Earth, every satellite uplink, and every deep space relay, the message of defiance was sent to the Zorath. The Secretary General stood before the cameras, his face calm but resolute. The speech was brief but powerful. "To the Zorath Dominion you have seen our strength, our unity, and our courage. You believe we are weak. You believe we will submit. Today we prove you wrong. We are the people of Earth. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. If you wish to challenge us, we will meet you not with fear, but with the full force of our resolve. Consider this your warning. Earth stands ready. Earth declares war." Across the globe, people cheered, raised flags, and held their heads high. Fear still lingered, but it was overshadowed by pride, hope, and determination. Humanity was ready to fight, and everyone knew it. The first strike. As the declaration reached the Zorath, the humans' fleet advanced. The first battle lines formed near the orbit of Mars. Human ships, though smaller and fewer, moved with precision and daring. They were not relying solely on firepower. They relied on creativity, unpredictability, and courage. Lieutenant Sarah Grant led a squadron of fast interceptors. "Stay sharp," she called to her pilots. "Remember what makes us different. Think faster, move faster, strike harder." The Zorath responded with overwhelming force. Energy beams cut through space, ripping apart human drones and smaller ships. Explosions lit up the void like artificial stars. But humans had learned from previous battles. They twisted their ships, used asteroids for cover, and employed drone swarms to distract the enemy. Every maneuver was calculated to exploit the Zorath's rigid tactics. Captain Daniel Reyes executed a daring plan. He led his small fleet behind a belt of asteroids, using the debris to mask their approach. At the right moment, they emerged from the shadows, unleashing a concentrated barrage on a Zorath cruiser. The shields held at first, but railguns and missiles struck repeatedly until sparks flew across the vessel's hull. Finally, with a tremendous explosion, the cruiser broke apart. Humanity's unseen weapon, the Zorath had never faced such adaptability. On their bridges, alien officers clicked their tongues in frustration. "These humans," one said, "their patterns cannot be predicted. Their courage is reckless and effective." Humanity's secret weapon was not technology alone, it was creativity and willpower. Engineers had modified drones to act like living storms, attacking in ways no Zorath algorithm could anticipate. Pilots used sudden maneuvers to confuse sensors. Even in the face of superior firepower, humans refused to fall into panic or despair. Admiral Akira Tanaka, orbiting Mars, watched her fleet maneuver brilliantly. "They think fear will stop us," she muttered. "They do not understand humans. They do not understand Earth." The tide begins to turn. The battle was long and intense. Ships clashed in space for hours. Explosions lit up the darkness, leaving trails of debris drifting through the void. Human losses were heavy, but every loss had meaning. Every victory, no matter how small, chipped away at the Zorath's confidence. By the end of the first day, the humans had achieved something remarkable. They had survived, and they had won key engagements. Several smaller Zorath vessels were destroyed. Human fleets had demonstrated they could fight together, innovate under pressure, and strike unpredictably. On Earth, news of these victories spread rapidly. People in cities, towns, and villages cheered and celebrated. Humanity had proven that it could fight against the most formidable force it had ever faced. And even the Zorath were beginning to fear the resilience of the species they had underestimated. The enemy reacts. The Zorath commander convened his officers aboard the flagship. Their previous confidence had been shaken. Reports from the front lines showed humans using strategies they had not predicted. Losses were mounting, and frustration was evident. "These humans are unlike the others," the commander said, his voice a low growl. "They are resourceful, unpredictable, and fearless. Yet they are still only one world. Crush them now, or they will become stronger." Orders were given to deploy the entire fleet toward the inner solar system. Every weapon, every ship, every soldier prepared for a decisive engagement. But the humans had learned well. They anticipated these moves and had prepared counter-strategies. The decisive engagement. The final battle began near the orbit of Earth. Human warships formed tight defensive rings, protecting the planet while preparing for offensive maneuvers. Drones swarmed the periphery, confusing sensors and intercepting missiles. Railguns fired with deadly precision. Ships twisted and darted in chaotic patterns that the Zorath could not easily counter. Captain Daniel Reyes and Lieutenant Sarah Grant led a coordinated strike deep into the Zorath lines. Human ships dodged energy beams and collided in sudden bursts, taking advantage of gaps in the alien formations. Every strike, every maneuver was designed to maximize the human advantage: intelligence, creativity, and courage. Dr. Elena Vargas monitored energy shields across the fleet. "Hold steady," she called. "Their fire is strong, but our shields are holding. Focus your attacks and exploit the chaos." The Zorath ships began to falter. For every human ship lost, 2 Zorath ships were damaged or destroyed. The humans' unpredictability was unmatched. What had once seemed impossible, a smaller, weaker force defeating a larger one, was now within reach. Humanity's triumph as the battle reached its peak. The flagship Aurora, with General Hale at the helm, led a concentrated strike against the largest Zorath vessel, the command ship of the invading fleet. The humans targeted weak points discovered through careful study of alien technology. A coordinated barrage of missiles, railguns, and drone strikes tore through the alien ship's defenses. Explosions erupted across its hull, lighting the void with blinding flashes. Slowly, deliberately, the mighty Zorath command ship began to crumble. On Earth, people watched live transmissions. Families, students, and workers across the planet cheered as the symbol of the Zorath's power was destroyed. Humanity had struck its first decisive blow, and it had proven something far greater than technological might. Courage, unity, and intelligence could overcome even the most terrifying foe. The world celebrates, for the first time in human history. The entire world rejoiced together. Streets were filled with people waving flags of Earth, singing songs of victory, and celebrating the courage of their soldiers. Leaders spoke of hope, resilience, and the power of unity. Even as the battle continued in space, humanity knew it had achieved something extraordinary. The Zorath had expected fear and submission. Instead, they found defiance, courage, and determination. Humanity had proven it would not kneel. Humanity had declared to the galaxy that Earth was not a world to be conquered. A new understanding. The Zorath commander, witnessing the destruction of his flagship, realized he had miscalculated. These humans were different. Small, fragile, and yet unbreakable. Every challenge they faced only made them stronger. Their defiance, creativity, and unity were unlike anything the Zorath had ever encountered. "They are dangerous," he admitted quietly. "More dangerous than any species we have faced. We underestimated them. And that was our mistake." A bold future in the Unified Defense Command, General Hale addressed his crew and commanders. "The Zorath expected us to cower, to surrender. But humanity has shown that we fight with heart, mind, and spirit. This is only the beginning. Our path will be hard and the battles will continue. But never forget this, we are Earth, we stand together. We fight together. And we will prevail together," Dr. Vargas added quietly. "They thought they could intimidate us, but they have discovered something they cannot destroy, the human spirit." From the streets of every city to the halls of every laboratory, people felt the truth of those words. Humanity had declared war, and it had done so with courage, unity, and defiance. The stars were no longer distant and silent. They had become the stage for humanity's greatest challenge, and humanity had already proven it could rise to meet it. The war had begun. But for the first time, the galaxy knew Earth would never kneel.